Hello guys, welcome back to a very cold John's workshop, and in this video we're going to attempt to change that and make it warmer again. So Chinese diesel heater, it's something that I've had in the workshop for probably 18 months now. Used it on and off. I only use it when I'm in the workshop. I never leave it on when I'm not. I don't have the perfect installation of this, as I'll show you, and I know I'm probably going to get lots of comments about how unsafe it probably is and all that kind of stuff, but I'm perfectly comfortable with the installation myself. So 2 days ago it failed to start, and I've got an error code on it, which is error code 03, which after a bit of research turns out we think it's probably the glow plug. So I've ordered a new glow plug that's turned up. I am going to do a show and tell of the error code, so I'll show you what's happening, and then we're going to take the thing out of its current installation, get it up on the bench, and have a look at how simple or difficult this is going to be to change. Now, most of the videos, if not all of the videos I've seen on YouTube of other people doing this, they've got the unit which isn't mine's self-contained, so it's a boxed unit with the fuel tank in it and the heater. Most of the ones I've seen on YouTube have not got that, they've just got the heater unit itself. So mine's going to be a little bit more tricky, I think, because I'm going to have to navigate everything else that's inside the box, including the fuel tank. So I don't know quite how difficult this is going to be. So I think that's probably it. Why I think I've covered that. It's bloody freezing and I want it to be warmer in here while I'm doing other things. So that's why we're doing it, and that's why there's no point waiting. I just need to crack on with it. It's probably about 3 or 4 degrees C in here at the minute. I do have my little oil-filled radiator on, but that's not a temperature that I'm comfortable on working in, so I need to get this fixed. So I will cut it here, take you to where it's currently installed, which is a disgusting state. Apologies in advance. And then we'll get it away from there, up on the bench, and we'll have a look at how we try and fix it. Okay, so here's my installation. It's right next to my milling machine. It's behind this pillar. It was only temporary when I did it, and as most people know, temporary solutions normally become permanent, and that's what's happened in this case. So trailing cables everywhere. It's balanced on chunks of wood, and it's got the control panel loosely set on top. It's got my power supply loosely on top. It was, I chucked it in to try it, and it's stayed like that ever since because it just works and I'm comfortable with it. But we'll try and tidy this up a little bit as we go. So this is where it sits. I've got a hole through the wall to the outside where the exhaust goes, and this is the bit that people will challenge me on. The actual inlet air for the combustions, there's 2 sides to these. There's a combustion side with inlet air and exhaust, and then there's also the heating side, which is a completely separate system where we pull air in from the workshop past the heating element and then blow it back out through the tube. Now I wanted this right down at floor level. You'll see I've got the outlet at floor level. They're most efficient if you're heating the air up near the floor, and so I'm happy with the installation. The bit that I've not done well here is my inlet air to the combustion side is just sucking that in through the garage, where at the moment that's fine. I should have another pipe going out through the wall, and I should be sucking my inlet air to the combustion side from the outside, not from in here. So if this decides it's suddenly going to start blowing back, then there's a chance and a risk that I could be getting carbon monoxide and other things coming through back out into the workshop. Now, as I said, I only run this when I'm in here, and literally I run it for an hour at a time. That's about as much time as I ever spend in the workshop, and this garage is as drafty can be. We live in a windy place, there's gaps all around my garage door. I'm perfectly comfortable that I am not in any danger, and if this thing starts running backwards for some bizarre reason and drawing air in through the exhaust and pushing it out the inlet, then the whole heater's going to stop working anyway. So I'm fairly comfortable that, whilst I know it's not a correct installation, I'm comfortable that it's safe enough for me to use in the way that I use it. So that's the installation. I'm just going to power it up and show you the error code on the control panel. Okay, so there's the control panel. I'm now going to fire it up using the remote control. So it's now switching on, and what we should see is a red glow plug image in here. We're not seeing that. Apologies, the screen's gone a bit dark. I'm hoping you can still see that. I can't get it any closer to the camera. I can get the camera closer to it maybe. So there we go, it's just errored out. I really don't know if it's showing up in the camera, I can't see in the viewfinder, but that's giving us E03 as an error. So it's just not firing up because the glow plug is just not getting warm. So we'll get all this apart, we'll get it up on the bench, and we'll come back in and have a look. So I just thought I'd show this. There's lots of people doing videos on these heaters at the moment because of obviously current world climate and what's going on with the cost of heating and everything else. And there's lots of advice going on to people's channels. You know, Steve GTR is another one. He's done a fantastic setup in his garage, done it properly, unlike me. He's gone to town and done a really good job. I've just bashed a hole through the wall and thrown this thing in very temporarily. But there's lots of people coming out with lots of what I consider to be really poor advice under the banner of safety and all the rest of it. Steve's got his sat on a MDF shelf, so it's, you know, heat rises, it doesn't go downwards. It's a law of physics and it doesn't change. But even with heat rising, my stainless steel exhaust goes out through here. This is wood. This is OSB board, and I've run this thing hot, and I've run it for probably the longest time, 3 hours, 4 hours. There is no evidence at all of any heat transfer from that exhaust to this wood. There's no charring, no burning. I'm not about to go up in a load of flames and burn my garage down. That exhaust is probably within, I don't know, half an inch all round of this timber, and there is absolutely zero effect. So if you're sitting one of these things on an MDF shelf, that's perfectly safe. Is this safe? No, it's not. Am I confident that because of the way I use the heater, and I only use it when I'm in here, and having seen that evidence that what I'm seeing there, am I confident that this is safe to put back in here and not have to change this? Yes, I am, because it's never going to get any hotter than it's already been, and it's not done any damage. So, you know, safety is a great thing and people need to be concerned with it, but there is a modicum of common sense needed when you're doing stuff like this, and you make your own mind up on whether you're comfortable or not, and I'm perfectly comfortable with this situation. Okay, so we've got this up on the bench. We've cleaned all the swarf and muck off it before we do anything else. Wouldn't you know it, it broke down just after I'd filled it with diesel. So we've got a full tank of diesel pretty much in here, red diesel. I think I'm going to need to take the cap off, so I need to be careful with this, otherwise I'm going to spill diesel all over the floor. I've got it balanced on some chunks of wood at the bottom so that I don't have to take the exhaust off, hopefully, so I can leave all of that connected and not mess around with it. So the first thing we're going to do is flip these clips off. And hopefully slide the outer casing off. That was nice and easy. If the rest of the job goes as well as that, we're going to be laughing. Right, we'll pop the lid back on the diesel. and then I'm just going to have a stare at this slower time and figure out what I need to do. And it's looking very much like I need to take that diesel tank out, which is going to be fun because it's full. I'll bring you back in a moment when I've figured out what I do here. Okay, this is where it's probably all going to go wrong. So we've managed to get our fuel tank set up on, I've just got two bits of 50mm box section. You could use bits of wood. I've got my diesel container here, and we're going to take this top pipe off where the diesel pipe connects to the bottom end of the fuel pump. Okay, reasonably successful. I'm sure you guys don't want to watch me drain 5 litres of red diesel back out into here, so I'll bring you back when we're on to the next bit. Okay, we've just removed the pipe, the fuel feed pipe to the burner from the fuel pump, and what I had to do, because it's so cold in here, is I've just used a very gentle bit of heat from the heat gun just to warm the pipe up so that we could get that off without damaging it. And what we're going to do now is pop this connector block off that powers the fuel pump, and we'll just drop the fuel pump down there out of harm's way for now. Put this clip back on so we don't lose it. Okay, so we managed that. We're now going to lift this plate out, which just rests on some pressed steel pins, I think, like rivets. I'll drop that fuel pipe out. Okay, so we're now a bit more into the area where we need to be. So that unit's screwed to the casing, and obviously I've still got my exhaust on. So I'm just now going to work out how we get this cover off, or what we need to do to get this cover off next. Okay, so we failed the intelligence test on that one. It's screwed on. That gets that out. That gets the top cover off. We can now see our offending article, so the glow plug's here. I'll bring you in a bit closer. Okay, so this is our glow plug that we're going to be replacing. So the first job, we need to take this control panel, circuit board, distribution board, whatever it is, off. So that's just a cap head screw and a washer, and then there's a couple of clips at this end that you need to squeeze together to release this. So yeah, we've got a circuit board there full of various different circuitry, and it's the green and yellow wire that go to our glow plug, So we'll just pop that off the board like that. We're going to pull this silicone rubber cover off, and there's our glow plug sitting in there. Now what you should have for these is like a 12mm socket or a box spanner that's got a slot in it so that you can feed the wires into the socket itself, because obviously you can't put a socket over here with all of this stuff on. I don't have one of those. Okay, the long series 12mm socket idea and chopping the wires isn't going to work. This is just not long enough. It will work to get the old one out because it doesn't matter where I chop the wires, but to fit the new one, the length of cable I'm going to have is just, that's not going to work. So we're going to try plan B. I've got some cranked pliers and I'm just going to go in onto the flats of the plug. Yes, I think that's worked. Yes, it has. That was fairly painless. So that doesn't look anything like the ones that I've seen that have failed on YouTube. The ones that have failed have normally got cracks in them or have got a lot of kind of dirty corrosion. That's really quite clean, which I would expect because this hasn't done a lot of work. But it is what it is. It said error 03 and that's what they're saying is the issue. What I could potentially do is get my multimeter out, put a reading across the pins, see what sort of resistance I've got across there and check that against the new one. Probably worth me doing that. I'll just have a crack at that. I'm out of my depth with electronics, but we'll give that a try. That's the only thing I can think of doing. Okay, so way out my depth here, but I've got my very expensive multimeter set to continuity or ohms, and I'm getting a difference when I touch the probes together, so I know that's working correctly. So I'm going to take my old heater plug, glow plug that I've taken out. Now I can't get the probes into there because it's too small, but there's enough room in the back, so I'm going to just stick the probes in at the back of the wires. Right, that's saying 0.339 kiloohms, and that's consistent. Take that back out, put it back in. 0.340 kiloohms on the old one. Here's my new part, ordered off eBay, £9 something, and it arrived within a couple of days. We'll just do that same test on this. Right, 0.7 of an ohm is what that's reading. We'll just repeat that, see if it's consistent. Yeah, 0.6 of an ohm. So there's definitely a difference between those two, which would suggest to me, as a complete idiot with electronics, that this one is faulty. I don't know why it's faulty, I don't know what those readings mean. All I know is the readings are different, so I'm going to take it from that there's something not quite right with this. So we'll fit the new one where the old one just came out. So excuse the handheld, but it's worth noting inside here where the glow plug or heater plug fits, there's a brass or stainless, it's hard to tell, gauze that it sits within, like a wire mesh. Now other videos on YouTube show people extracting those using an 8mm coach bolt or threaded screw, screwing into the bore and then just pulling the gauze out to either replace it or try and clean it. Now I've examined that with a torch in there and that gauze is pretty clean, it looks pretty brand new. This unit has not done a lot of work, so I'm not even going to mess with that. There's no carbon on it, no carbon deposits. It's still got its original kind of brass colour to it and it looks very clean, so I'm leaving well enough alone. I'm just going to pop the new plug straight back in there, but that's something worth checking if you're following along and doing this yourself. Okay, so we're going to get our new heater plug or glow plug put in. It's got a protective cover on it, so we're just going to pop that off carefully. Now what else I've seen from YouTube is people saying you need to be very careful when you put this in, that you don't damage this by sort of scratching it or scorking it on that gauze that I've just shown you. So this needs some very careful assembly. So I'm down to the threads there now. Once you're located in the threads, there should be no risk of damaging the plug on that gauze. Okay, we're into the threads. Okay, that's got our plug in, so now we're going to gently move this silicone cover down into place. Okay, and then we can reattach our cable to the board, and then pop the board back into place. Okay, that's us back in our temporary-ish position, and I'm just going to flip you up. So I've moved the control panel up onto the wall, so we'll focus the camera in on that. I've got the power supply running, that's all at the minute, so we'll hit start together and you can see at the same time as me whether that's been successful or not. Okay, there's a bit of glare from the lights, but hopefully you can see that. You can certainly see the unit lit up. So what I'm looking for in this little semi sort of shape, which is where I've taken the cover off. On the inside is the red glow plug sign. So here's my power button. We'll go for on and see what happens. Yep, so we've got a full glow plug constantly on there now. The fans started running. That's perfectly normal. I'm not sure whether this will need to do any kind of priming of the diesel, because I've had the pipe work off. We'll see what it does. You'll soon know whether this is working, because it's going to sound like a 747 taking off at Heathrow Airport, which is what it normally sounds like. And what a refreshing sound that will be, to be nice and warm back in here again. So the glow plug symbol is staying on, which wasn't happening before. So what should happen very shortly is the fuel pump will start clicking once the glow plug gets up to temperature. There we go. That's our fuel pump started. Oh, what a happy sound. I never thought I'd be pleased to hear that noise. It's so intrusive when I'm filming in here, but you need to be warm, right? It's fired up. I can hear the combustion started. And what will happen is as the combustion gets warmer, the fan will increase in speed and the pump will pump faster and faster and faster until it gets right up to top temperature, and then it will settle back down to the frequency that I've got this set at, which is 4 Hertz. So that's 4 clicks of the pump every second pretty much. So yeah, you can hear it winding up. And we've got warm air starting to come out of the vent pipes. That's good. Yeah, starting to wind up now. See, our glow plug symbol's gone off now because the heat in the system is obviously self-sustaining with the heat produced by the combustion. And we're just about to take off. Please make sure that you've got all of your belongings under the seat in front of you or in the overhead lockers. Happy. It's starting to get nice and warm in here again, which is pleasant. So I hope that was interesting, something a little bit different, but for anybody else who's got one of these, and my regulars will know I'm no electrician, do not understand electronics in the slightest, but what I do understand is the readings I took with the multimeter on the existing one that I suspected broken and the new glow plug, you saw the difference. I forget what it was 0.3 kilo ohms on the broken one, and it was about 0.7 of an ohm I think on the brand new one. So if anybody wants to check if they've got a similar fault, that E03 fault coming up on the panel, and they want to check out whether it is the glow plug, because I think there are 2 or 3 things it can be with that E03 error. Easy way to do it if you've got a multimeter is just check the 2 wires, check the resistance across the glow plug, and you should be reading, well certainly for the 5 kilowatt version, which is what mine is, you should be reading about 0.7 of an ohm. If you're reading anything bigger than that, you know, i.e. big numbers, then it's probably definitely the glow plug that's failed. So you can do a bit of predictive assessment before you actually get to stripping the whole thing down and having a look at it. So that may be useful to somebody. So I hope you've enjoyed that as much as I have. I'm really enjoying it now. It's starting to feel like it's not the Baltic in here anymore, which is great. So no machining in this week, unfortunately for my regulars, but the good news is now it's warming up in here, there might be some machining next week. So thank you all very much for watching. Thank you to the subscribers and the new subscribers. I hope this helps somebody, and we'll catch you all very soon on another video when we'll be making something else.